What's going on, everyone? It's me, Vindy. This is the start of a new series I'm going to be doing where I do weekly chapter reviews for all of Weekly Shonen Jump. I'm current on the whole magazine. Thanks to Viz not thanks to Viz, like they're partnering, but because of Viz doing the, Shonen Jump app where they translate everything except for Yuna, I've been able to be current on the whole magazine. And it's really cool. I think it's really cool that now people can be current on all of Shonen Jump because it's, one of the biggest magazines. It has all these super popular manga, and we can now read the newest ones as they come out and just read everything on the day that it comes out of Japan. Super cool. So I'm going to be kind of reading it every week, giving thoughts, kind of like this. This is going to be like an episode 0 of sorts, because the idea is that what I'm doing is going to be going over all the series that I'm going to be talking about, giving thoughts, kind of explain what I think of them, so that when we start actually talking about chapters, people kind of know what my baseline is for how I feel about all these series. I think the best way to order this is to just go in like the order of how long they are. So the order for that would be One Piece, Haikyuu, MHA, Black Clover, Kimetsu no Yaiba, Promised Neverland, We Can't Study, Dr. Stone, Act Age, Jujutsu Kaisen, Samurai 8, Chainsawman, Mission Yozakura Family, Mitama Security Spirit Busters, Zipman, and then Agravity Boys. And I'll talk about new manga as they show up and as things end, because we should be getting a decent amount of manga in the magazine ending next year. I'll talk about those and give maybe a separate video of how I feel about them as a whole once they're all said and done. I'm not going to be talking about Yuna and the Haunted Hot Springs, even though it is in the magazine and I am reading it, which, if you were curious, it'd be in between. I think it'd be either above or right below Kimetsu no Yaiba. I'm not completely sure, but I think they're right about the same time. But the reason I'm not going to be talking about Yuna is because Seven Seas has the publishing rights for it, so it's not in the Viz Shonen Jump app, and I'm not going to wait for scanlations to come out, whether it's the same day, different day. I'm just going to try to talk about them and release the video on Sunday, so I don't think it makes sense for me to talk about Yuna, since I'm not always guaranteed to have a chapter, and it's not always guaranteed to be the chapter that same week. So Yuna's just not going to be talked about. I apologize for that. If people want to see Yuna, I can maybe talk about Yuna in batches of chapters at a different time. But I'll just get right into the manga that I am talking about. So I'll start with One Piece. I really like One Piece. I think it's really good. It's fantastic. The Straw Hats are super great. I love them all. I love Luffy. I think that the series does a lot of really good things sometimes with like all the different Straw Hats and how they all contribute to the crew, and I really like the crew dynamic and like the family dynamic they have, but also where Luffy's their captain, and anytime Luffy does something, they're like, yeah, he's our captain, we go along with it. That's one of my favorite parts. I think the actual world and like the Grand Line itself is really interesting, and the way the characters interact with the world. So like the way that, Usopp and what Usopp wants is really interesting with Elbaf, right? For one example. Or I guess a better example would be Zoro and Wano, right? Like there's this whole like certain characters have islands that like kind of, they hit in kind of different, and I really like that. So One Piece is really good. I think sometimes in like week to week it can feel a little slow. Like I definitely think the series feels better when you're binging all through it, because the way Oda likes to pace his chapters, and this is something I'll talk about a lot as we read the chapters, but the way Oda likes to pace his chapters is sometimes it feels like you get 3 chapters where like half a thing happens, and then that 4th chapter like 5 things happen. So it's like you get these long stretches where it's all set up for one big chapter, and those big chapters are great and they're insane. But I kind of prefer like a more spread out, kind of pacing. Not that it's bad, because it works really well when you're binging, and like then there are times like the current Odin flashback that doesn't have that, and it's amazing. So it's not like a constant problem with One Piece. I think it's mainly at the start of arcs. Like I think the start of Wano was a little bit slower for me, but it's starting to pick up now, and I'm excited to see where it continues to go. So that's all really I have to say for One Piece. We'll talk more about it, as we get into the chapters and as I can talk more about specifics, but these are very general so that we can just kind of get through it. Next is Haikyuu, which is my second favorite sports series after Hajime no Ippo. Haikyuu is fucking phenomenal. I think Furodate right now is my favorite artist in Jump. I love his faces. Like I'll be talking about it as the manga goes, but they're like faces that he'll give, and like the expression that you'll like, the emotion you feel when you look at some of the faces, and the way that he shows motion through his panels. It's so good, and I think Furodate doesn't get enough credit for how fucking phenomenal the art in Haikyuu is, and how much better it's gotten. Like you look at early stuff like before Nationals, and you look at the current like in the Nationals and stuff that's going on now, completely different. It's so crazy. That man has like 8 spreads a chapter, and it's like, dog, you've taken 2 breaks in 7 years of doing a weekly manga, and you have like 8 spreads a chapter. I don't know where you do it. I don't know where this energy comes from, right? Poor Oda's dying. He has to take every 3rd week off or whatever the fuck, he can barely draw. We get like 2 spreads a year. Okay, that's a joke. I love you, Oda. But, Furodate's art is insane. I love all the characters. The team of Karasuno, and then whatever's going on, like all the characters in the manga are really good. The matches are super good and always have really good character arcs through them. You know, a lot of the matches get multiple characters arcs, which is good. And everything that has happened this last year in Haikyuu has been absolutely insane. The path the manga's taken, I don't think anybody expected it to take, and it's really interesting now. And it's now that we're in like what's probably the last game of the manga, it's really exciting. I really like Haikyuu. Next is MHA, My Hero Academia. I really like MHA. I know it feels like it's massive, right? Like everyone loves MHA, or people hate MHA, right? It's very much a mixed bag of sorts. I'll just say I like MHA a lot. I really like the characters. I love Bakugo and All Might. I think Deku has gotten better as a hero and as the main character as the series gone on. I think Shigaraki as well has like this kind of cool foil with Deku where like they both get stronger together. So as Deku's become a better hero, Shigaraki's become the better villain. And I really like that dynamic. I like a lot of this stuff about what is a hero. There was this interesting interview I read with Hori actually, kind of more recently. And he was talking about how at the start of the series, he had a very clear definition to him of what a hero is. But as he's kept writing it, that definition of like what is a hero has gotten way more muddled. And it's interesting how like that's influenced MHA. So I think MHA does a lot of really good things. I think a lot of discussion on the series is really bad because I think it's a lot of people saying a lot of the obvious stuff and then a lot of people giving other obvious criticism, because no series is perfect, right? So everything's got obvious criticism. And people giving sometimes obvious criticisms and sometimes criticisms that I don't think are fair, but are more like, well, I'm going to find something to complain about because MHA is so popular, you know? So I kind of disagree with some of the discussion because of that, but I think overall MHA is still really good. I really like it. I think Corey's another really underrated artist. I think he has a bunch of like great moments art-wise, and I think he's just like, I really like the MHA manga, and I think it's popular, so it's weird to say it's almost underrated in a sense, but I think it has a lot of really poor discussion around it. Like people kind of don't say a lot of times what should be said. Next is Black Clover, which I am more mixed on than anything else I think ever, because when I first read Black Clover, it was when I first got caught up, it was at the start of the Elf arc, like the very start of the Elf arc. So the arc that just ended before the current arc we're on. And I remember being like, wait, people said Black Clover is bad, but it's really, really good. And then as I was reading the Elf arc week to week, I started to like it a lot less. And I don't think it's because I started reading weekly. I just really don't like the Elf arc. I like the beginning up part of it, right? I like when it's just like the people turning into elves. I think the fact that they kill the devil is, sorry, spoilers, but they kill the devil. It's stupid. It's really dumb. I don't like the way that fight looks. I think it's really messy. I think it just looks like he spilled ink on the page and was like, here's a fucking demon attack. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like that fight at all, and I don't think the manga's come back really since then. So I say that, you know, it kind of jumped the shark because I think it kind of did, but I think it's also like, you know, it could still get better. But like, again, like the Royal Knight selection is one of my favorite shonen arcs. It's so good. Zoro is great, and so it's just weird to me that like the series has dropped off so hard from when I thought it was super good. So I hope that the series can kind of get back to what I thought was really good in it, and I hope we can see that more. Another example of a thing I really liked was there's a spread. I'll try to find it and put it up on the screen where As is talking, he's like, you know, I wasn't blessed with magic, but something like I was blessed with such great friends. Great spread, great moment, fucking great. But I think Black Clover just hasn't been that good in a long time, and I really hope he can get back there, but I think the last arc and current are just not there. Kimetsu no Yaiba is next. I like Kimetsu. I've been reading it for a long time. It's weird for me because I think some arcs are like really good, like the train arc and the one in the Red Light District and the one in the Sword District. Or the Sword Maker, you know, village. I do think it's dropped off a little bit, this current arc. I don't think it's bad. I just think nothing that's happened in this current arc has been like, it's had good fights, right? Don't get me wrong. But I just don't think it's been at the level of some of the other stuff. However, I think the recent flashback and just the way the current fight's going down is like really good. And I really want to see more of it because I really think that Kimetsu has a lot of potential. And I really like I think the art is like unique and I really like looking at it. So I hope that even once Kimetsu's done, we see more from her because I really like her art and I really like Kimetsu. I just think the last arc hasn't been as good as some of the previous arcs, but it's still pretty good and I still like reading it. Next is The Promised Neverland, which is one of my favorites in Jump, I think. I really, really like Promised Neverland. I love Well, I think it also, and I think this is just kind of a thing with manga sometimes, is like, I think Promised Neverland is super arc dependent, because I think the first arc was really good, and then I think it kind of super dropped until Goldie Pond. And I think since Goldie Pond, Promised Neverland has been really, really good. I really like Promised Neverland. I love Emma and I love Ray. Norman's good too, but I just like, those are the two characters that I really, really like. I like Dawn and Gilda, and all the characters are great. I like the themes a lot of times. Like the chapter recently where they kind of switched Norman's mind was great. I love the way that Emma will say, this is what I want, and Ray's like, yeah, you're right. Okay, let's do it. I really like the themes and the way it's doing its message, and I'm excited for what's going on next and to see how the series is all going to play out once it all finishes. So I do really like Promised Neverland. Next is We Can't Study. It's enjoyable. I mean, Nisekoi is one of my favorite manga. I don't want to compare We Can't Study and Nisekoi because they are different series, but, they are both, rom-com kind of harem manga in Jump. But I think We Can't Study is good and has its own merits, right? I like Nariyuki a lot, and all the cast is really good. I enjoy watching it kind of play out. I think a lot of the arcs, like the character arcs, have been pretty good, and I think everything that's happened recently as the series is kind of getting closer to its conclusion is really good, We have the first confession now, so that means that the series is kind of reaching its climax in terms of the romantic element, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, because that's one of the most interesting parts, I think, of a harem series, is once all of this starts to play out, how does it fit in thematically with what the series is saying, and which girl does he end up with, for thematic reasons, right? Because obviously, like, We Can't Study is a series that's trying to say something. It's not just like, oh, look at these girls, look at them cute, haha. It has things it's saying, and so I like seeing how everything is going to fit into what it's trying to say. So I think We Can't Study discussion is going to be really interesting because it's getting to that point, The last few chapters have been like this big payoff, and now we're getting to the confessions, so it's getting interesting. So I do like We Can't Study quite a bit. Dr. Stone is next. Dr. Stone's weird for me because I've been reading it since like chapter 9, and I really like it. I think that like the antibiotic arc, when they were trying to make the antibiotics, was probably the best point of the manga. And I do think it's dropped a little bit. Like, I think the Stone Wars there was this weird tone shift in the Stone Wars, right? Where they went from it being more about this scientific advancement of society to being about the fighting, right? And about the wars and like the civilization aspect. The fact that it took them like half a year, maybe 9 months, I think, maybe. Like, because it was like 30 chapters for them to make antibiotics, which is a thing we just kind of take for granted, was super cool to me. And like, at the beginning, you see Senku has the writing on the wall of how often it took him, like how many tries he had to do to make the petrification solution to fix him. And what was really cool about that was, he was like, this is science. And I loved that. I loved seeing him have to try and try again. And I think that during the Stone Wars, there was definitely a point where as it started to shift, I think Senku became too much of a all-powerful being who could just do anything. And I think what's interesting is now it's kind of been taken back a little bit because with the current arc, they're not able to just make a tank in a chapter. And there's some really good stuff. I think that a perfect example of a way that science should be used, but they still are in like the Stone Age, is, what is his name, Hyoga, with the pole spear thing. That was great. That's like a scientific invention that makes sense that he can use, but is also, not a tank. And it's good. And so I'm really liking it again after a while of really not liking it. Not liking it, just I didn't think it was, I think it had lost what made it special, but I think it's had I don't know if to say like a tone or genre shift, but it had a shift in how it was doing things. And I think that just at the beginning of that shift, it was a little rocky and a little awkward, but I think it's hit its stride now with the way it's going now, and it's enjoyable again. Next is Act Age, which is good. Read Act Age. It's really fucking phenomenal. I was surprised how much I liked it. It's 100% the best manga in the under 100 club in Weekly Shonen Jump right now. So, everything under 100 chapters, which is Act Age and everything I'm going to say after this. And Act Age is by far the best. And I would say Act Age is probably better than most of the other manga just in the magazine. It's super good. The main character is really good. Yonagi's great. All the other actors are really good. The way that it uses these performances to have arcs and to, explain things and show themes is really fucking good. And the current arc is insane. I really think Act Age is something you should read, and I think it's going to be one of those ones that's really fun to talk about every week, because there's always something, like, especially right now, because we're in, like, the climax of an arc, there's always something happening that's like, oh my god, this manga's great. So I definitely think that Act Age is one that I would recommend reading. It's pretty solid. It's super solid. Read it, please. I feel like not enough people are reading it. Next is Jujutsu Kaisen. So I like Jujutsu. It's the one I'm most recently caught up to. I like Goto and Itadori a lot. Like a lot. I really love both of them. There are also some of the side characters I really like Panda and Toto are great. I really like the art, like when Itadori is running, he's like got a punch, like the way it shows motion is really cool and really good. I think the story is like really early still, and I'm curious to see how it progresses from here. But I do like it, and I'm interested to see kind of where it goes, right? Like, I think the current arc is kind of good, and it's sad because there's some pretty big death flags for someone that I don't want to die, and I'm scared. But I also think that character dying could be great for the series because they're kind of broken. So I'm curious to see where it goes from here, but I do like it so far. A pretty decent amount. Next is Samurai 8. Samurai 8's fine. It's one of my least favorite in the magazine right now. I think it's one of the few ones that I would say, like, isn't just really good. I think it's had some decent moments so far, but I think that everything's too white. Like it's like thin outlines with white on like both sides, and so I just get confused looking at pages sometimes. And maybe I'm stupid, right? Maybe I'm the only person in the world who has this problem, but I feel like there are times where I can't tell what's happening because everything is the same shade of white with thin outlines, you know. I also think that the manga's had a little bit too much exposition with like crazy terms, and so because of that, there are times where like I'm just reading it and I'm like, what the fuck? Who is this that they're talking about? And then I gotta go like look it up and try to refigure it all out. So Samurai 8, I think, could get really good because like it's had some pretty good moments so far. Once it gets to the part where like it's out of like the intro prologue, I think it could get really good. But I still feel like we're still very early on in the overall like story, and because of that, it just kind of doesn't hit me as hard. But I'm hoping it does kind of pick up as it goes. Next is Chainsawman, which is just dumb, edge, and fun. Like it's, you know, I say edge, but I'm not saying edgy is a bad thing, right? Because it's not trying to be like, oh, I'm so, you know, it's not like Tokyo Shinobi Squad was, where it's like, oh, it's so dark and edgy and deep. It's like Denji has chainsaw hands and a chainsaw head, and he's riding a shark. That's great. Because the series isn't trying to be more than that, right? I mean, I'm not saying that it doesn't have things that are good about it, but it knows what it is, right? There are times where it knows it's just being dumb and fun, right? So it's not trying to be like, oh, you know, look how serious Denji riding a shark with chainsaws. And it's like, look, it's funny. Like, it's good. And I like it's like self-aware about itself. And I think that's probably the manga's biggest strength, is its self-awareness and kind of the way it can, you know, register like, this is what I am. And I definitely think that's the best part of it. I like Denji. I think he's really good. Like he's just a dumb fun boy. Power is amazing. I love Power. She's so good. She's great. And I really want to see where Chainsaw Man goes. You know, we just got the end of an arc, and I think Chainsaw Man's finally getting to a point where it does want to maybe start doing, you know, and I'm not saying it hasn't had kind of serious stuff, but I think it's getting to that point where like it's really going to start getting into it, and I really want to see what happens because it's good. Next is, there are two at the same time, so I'm just going to pick the order now, and then I'll just go with this order. So next is Mission Yozakura Family. It's new, right? It's new. Like, I think the last chapter was 18 or something. But I like it. I like the marriage between Taiyo and Mutsumi. I think it's good. It's enjoyable. I like the way the family fits into it. I like anytime it kind of touches on those romantic elements just a little bit, because it's like, it's not the main point of the series, but when they do touch it, it's like, ooh, I like that. And like, it's good so far. I can see what it's gonna try to do, which now I feel like this series, like the last chapter was, the prologue is over, we're going to start arcs. Like, it feels like they got the green light from Shueisha, like, okay, you got a couple more volumes to gauge it. So he's like, all right, let's do an arc. So he gives it kind of like this, like, boop, okay, we're done with the like weekly, 2-week, 3-week arcs at most. And I think that the series has been trying to do this thing where it shows like Taiyo isn't from a spy family. So he doesn't conduct himself and do missions in the same way that the spies do, which is really interesting. And I'm interested to see the way that plays out. Like, for example, there was the arc where Mutsumi was captured, and he saved that little girl who ended up giving them information about where she was that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And that's the kind of thing where everyone else, like the older brother that was there, was like, no, don't do that. Like, if you do that, you're hurting the mission. And he's like, I'm going to do it anyways, and ended up helping him. And I'm curious to see, what happens when it does hurt the mission, but he feels like he has to do it anyways because that's how he is. I want to see that happen, and I think that that's kind of what it's going to be about, and I'm hoping we get to that soon now. Next is Mitama Security Spirit Busters. It's another one where it's fine. I don't love it. Like, I think it has some great moments, right? Like, I really like the chapter where Mitama was sick and they had to take care of him. But there are some chapters I like. I think a lot of times it like sets you up that something's going to happen and then undercuts it with a joke. And I think that the problem with that isn't that there's a joke, but it's that they make you think something really cool or serious thing to happen and then undercut it. And I don't think the jokes are bad. Like, it definitely gets me sometimes, but I also think that because of the way it's done it, if it doesn't stop just undercutting everything with a joke, at some point it will reach a shelf life and it will just get tired after a while. So I can see potential in the series. Like, there have been times where I've been like, yeah, like, I want to see what happens, and I'm curious to see it change it up and kind of do something. So I'm hesitant about it, but I'm still curious to see where it goes. So next is Zipman, which is 4 chapters in. So I really don't have much to say about Zipman and Agravity Boys right now. They're just too new, you know. Like, I can talk, you know, I can try to make shit up, but at the end of the day, there's just not enough to say. I mean, I can say for Zipman, I like it so far. I really like the last chapter where they got the name Zipman. I like the idea behind that. I liked the page where there was like the zip and you see their faces on either side. I thought that was really cool as well. But yeah, there just isn't a lot right now, I feel like, to go off of. It's interesting because, like, you know, obviously Zipman, Jackman, you know, whatever is, you know, kind of like Kamen Rider. And there was like the Magical Girl. And we've seen, you know, there was like Optimus Prime and a Godzilla. So it feels like it's very much like something for people who are both kids now who watch Toku and people who are a little bit older who watched Toku when they were younger. You know, considering the main character watched Toku when he was younger and wants to be like that, right? But then that's also something where younger kids reading it are be like, oh, I like Kamen Rider, I like Magical Girls, you know what I mean, stuff like that. So I think that's the one thing that is kind of interesting about it, and I want to see it play out. Also, I do like the art. I think it looks good. Again, like, there's just not much to say about Zipman, and now I guess we can talk about Agravity Boys. I hope it gets canceled. It's my least favorite thing in the magazine right now. I know it only has 3 chapters, but I think that the first chapter could have done something interesting if it had turned into a romance. Didn't do it. Second chapter was about the maid, and it was just like, you know, it had like 1 or 2 good jokes, but it didn't do anything for me. And then the last chapter, I liked the ending where he comes out and he's like, I took a dump. But like, besides that, it's just, I really just don't care about the series very much. I will say though, I love the character designs, so I hope we see something else from the artist if Gravity Boys gets canceled, because I think his character designs are really cool, and I'd like to see them do actual good things. But yeah, I think that's about it. I went through them all. I don't know what day. I think it's technically like Monday, like next Monday in 2020. The first Monday is when we'll get Jump, or it's Sunday, whatever. So this will go up before then, and then you can expect that the day that they go up on Viz, right, the day that all the chapters go up on Viz, I'll record my reactions. I'll, you know, edit it so I cut out pauses and stuff like that, and I'll upload it. So that's what I'm starting with right now. I might add in chapter, you know, reviews and reactions for Ippo, Beastars, and Kingdom. But besides that, right now I'm just planning on going with Shounen Jump for now. If y'all like it, let me know. If you want to see certain things, leave a comment, any feedback, anything like that, I really appreciate. Like the video, share it, and subscribe. Probably not for this one. This is kind of just like a, you know, if you are already going to watch, here's the start. But I wanted to get that framework out there, so then when I start talking about, you know, Act Age or Dr. Stone, people don't have to ask me, what do you think of Dr. Stone? I can be like, look, I did a video on it. This is my thoughts, my rough thoughts on Dr. Stone, and you'll get more of them as we keep going, right? So that's kind of it. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you stick around for more.